We get going, and we had a great RSVP for about 40 people or so, and we figured this would be a pretty hot topic. I am happy to introduce to you, I'm saying now we have a trifecta. We have American Pharaoh in the room where we have Dan Paquette, who is the sponsor today, Key Methods, an IT company, and he's going to talk a little bit more about their role and what they do. And then Dan also is doing the presenting, and then he is going to be our new board president here officially in a couple of weeks. So, so now his job is just to keep me out of his hair, so that I'm not trying to tell him what to do, because I've been the president, as some of you know, for a long time, and lots of familiar, friendly faces in the room today, and we want you to mark your calendar for August 13th. A lot of people know that's our Tech Stomp fun networking event. We're going to have it at Omi Garden again this year, and we've been getting near 100 people or so, which is nice for that venue, especially to get to play games. Did anybody come to the Tech Stomp last year? Yeah, a few. So it's pretty fun. We get to enjoy each other. We get to celebrate innovation in our community, and then we also like to appreciate our membership base, which has continued to grow year over year for many years. So it's a nice, fun time. So Dan, we appreciate you so much. Thank you again for sponsoring today and bringing this very relevant and timely information to us.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This morning I was chopping slides out of the deck, a lot of them, just trying to get it trimmed down. So I'll try to keep us on task, but I do want to have interaction with everybody because this is a really, I think it's an interesting topic because it affects all of us, whether you're a personal consumer or whether you run a business or whether you're in, a high compliancy type of an environment like healthcare or banking or whatever. So a little bit about Key Methods. For those of you that don't know, Key Methods is a company here in the Valley. We do managed network services. We do cloud desktops, IP phone systems. So our whole concept is to give you the IT tool sets and resources you need from any device, anywhere, at any time. That's our mission. So that's what we do. You can look on our website, find out more about us. I'm going to sacrifice some of my sponsorship time to spend time to actually do the presentation and work with you. So I'm not going to make this a big sales pitch today because I really want to talk about the security stuff. So outside of that, put the GWATA hat on. Want to make sure that the content that we're doing is stuff that you guys care about, that's relevant, that's timely, that's interesting, all those sorts of things. So please, I don't think we have any official review forms or anything coming out of here today, but that's something that we're going to try to do as we roll out different things you'll see coming this next year, enhancements to our website, etc. But please feel free to let me know. Jenny know, anybody that's representing GWATA here today, hey, I like this, didn't like that, do more of this, don't do more of that. And if you have other ideas or concepts, hey, you guys are the ones that connect people and resources, here's what I'd really like to see in the future, they'll let us know because that helps us drive what gets to come in, helps us determine what kind of presenters to get, etc. So, all right, so with that, we're going to start with cybersecurity, which is a pretty big topic. I am going to just splash the screen up here because I'm going to try to make the content available at some point in time. So if this goes anywhere, I want to make sure, just from a disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm not saying that if you do or do not do these things that you're protected. Okay, this is an informational time for us to talk about cybersecurity in our environment. Hopefully, I'm telling you a lot of things that are going to be very wise and you'll adhere to them. But again, I'm not a legal attorney. This is not our quote-unquote specialty, but it's certainly something that we deal with day in and day out. So today we're going to go over, what are the risks, what's going on in the industry, what kind of trends are we seeing today, some of the basic prevention techniques and audits that you can do to keep yourself safe, identify if something bad's going on in your environment. We're going to talk about penetration testing, vulnerability scans, the kind of deeper dive of how do I know when this isn't my area of expertise? How do I get something that kind of is certified that kind of says somebody else looked at this other than me? And we're just going to skim on some levels of that. I had a lot more in the deck, but I had to pull them out by how much time we had. So certainly one of the concepts is, if this is interesting to you, we may do a 201 class, a deeper dive, whether it's with GWATA, or Key Methods might do a web event or something. So if there's enough interest, we'll go deeper than what we're going to get to do today. We're going to hit the top best practices kind of for small businesses. These apply whether you're a nonprofit organization or even a larger organization as well. But most of us, that's what's going to hit it. And then we'll have some time, hopefully, at the end for some Q&A. So when we talk about risks, I like to start with the concept of security. So what is security? I like this definition. It's the state of being free from danger or threat. Right? So, and then I read it and I said, okay, so I never feel secure then, because there's always imminent danger and there's always a threat that's out there. And they made me think, so does ignorance basically make you safe? So if I don't know about it, it can't hurt me, right? I mean, that's the concept. But we all probably know, no, that's a false sense of security. Okay? So you may still be at risk, you just don't know about it. Okay? And that can be true for the cyber world or the physical world. You know, if you're not attentive, you don't know what's going on, you may get in trouble. So how many of you guys feel secure here today? Now we would define that. You feel secure physically in the room? In the space, let's talk about physical security. We live in Wenatchee. It's a nice town. We had a guard at the door. We have one way into the room. Feel fairly secure, right? We haven't had any big outbreaks in Wenatchee from bad things happening that happen in some big cities. So that gives us a little sense of security. Why? Well, all those things that I just said. So what I'm trying to point out here is each of us has our own background. We have our own knowledge. Maybe if you're brand new to the area, you don't know if this is the safe end of town. You don't know if this is a safe place, right? If this is all based on your past experience. When we talk about security in a business world, it's very similar. You only know what you know, and that's what we're trying to accomplish today, is to help you know that a little bit. We also determine what level of risk we're willing to take. Some of us mountain bike, some of us skydive, some of us do all kinds of things that may be risky to other people, but we know that going in, and we choose that risk for ourselves. But when we talk about business, okay, we have to have some kind of standards, right? And why? Because we affect other people's lives, right? They're our employees, they're our family, it's something we need to care about. They might be our customers, right? So we can't just say, well, I'm going to take that risk, because it's not really my decision to make. So I like talking about the physical world a little bit more. When we talk about physical types of security, they're different based on public and private, and they're different based on the assets being protected, right? So if I go to a bank, right, the way that they protect, hey, that was a good one. when they protect their assets, it's probably a little differently than the way I protect my home. Right? And it's probably different than the way somebody else might protect their home. If I have a $6,000 mountain bike, I probably protect it differently than I do if I got my old beater that I'm just kicking around. Right? I'm going to lock it up. I'm going to be a little more observant of what's around me. I'm going to watch see if I'm being followed. All those kinds of things. When you think about cybersecurity, just think about security in general. Right? How do you deal with your own physical security? You probably need to be thinking about your cybersecurity in a very similar way. In the real world, we tend to know when there's been a breach. I come home, the door's propped open and the lock's busted. I walk in, my big screen TV's gone. It's like, I know there's a problem. Cyber world, not so much. You may be a victim and you don't even know about it. Right? So we need to be thinking about that. How do we monitor the physical world? Again, we have security cameras we can put up. We can do audits and have somebody walk around the premises. There are very defined things that we know how to do because it's familiar to all of us. We grew up that way. So we want to get you educated so that you treat your cybersecurity in a very similar way. And then we know how to prevent risk, right? The common things of locking the door. If I left it unlocked, if I turned the lights on at night versus having it all dark and shady, there's just certain things that you know to do. We're going to pick up on some of those today. And unlike in the cyber world, in the physical world, if you have high value assets, you're probably a target. start flashing the wad of cash around, you drive the fancy car, you live in the big house, you do have the big ring, all those little indicators are, I have an asset or something that would likely cause me to be a victim of somebody wanting to take that from me. We don't get to see that in the cyber world, as we're going to see, where it's very nondescript. We all have something everybody wants. We have credit cards, we have identifications, we have access to passwords, we have bank accounts, right? So we're conduits to everybody else. So I'm just as valuable as you are, as you are, as you are when we talk about cybersecurity, right? Because those things matter. So the big thing here, the takeaway to remember is you are a target, right? Doesn't matter if you're rich, doesn't matter if you're poor, doesn't matter where you work. So you have, if you do anything electronically, you are a target. You're valuable to somebody out there. And criminals know this. So when we look at small businesses, we all think we're safe. We have other things to think about other than security. I have a business to run. I have employees I need to pay. I have customers that I need to satisfy. So I'm not spending all my time trying to protect my assets. So I'm trying to protect my assets in a different way by making my business run. Okay, so criminals know this, and they're investing lots of money into that demographic because it's an easy mark. It's an easy target. It's a little bit better than individual. It's not a really big company that's probably got lots of IT resources and pounding away on their security and have massive compliancy. Let's go for the easy guys. Those are the small businesses that are busy every day. Even in the big boy world, a lot of boards are being misled, by their IT departments. Yeah, it's okay. We got that covered. Don't worry about it, right? And sometimes those guys are in denial. The information technology and information systems guys don't often get lots of support because maybe the board doesn't understand what you're trying to do. I need more money to do X or Y or Z. Why do you need that? We didn't need that last year. Yeah, but security threats changed since last year. We need more money here. So again, it's not getting funded properly. And companies, this is the hard one here, are typically infected long before they know it. Right? So bad things happen in the inside, like a cancer, well before you ever see it exposed in symptoms, right? So by the time you know about it, it's too late, typically. Right? So that's why it's great to attack us small business people. So you look at what's going on in the industry, many of the exploits are targeted specifically at small business. So here's a couple that I know there's people in this room that have probably had this because some of you guys are clients and I know about it and I can't disclose. Okay, but we've got things like here's your FedEx package you missed yesterday. Click here to get your shipping receipt or whatever. AT&T messages, here's your new, phone setup, here's your new voicemail password reset, here's your UPS, here's your whatever, right? It's targeted right at small business because we know, criminals know, that small business cares about their customers. Somebody wouldn't be sending this to me if it wasn't important, and I got to act on it because we got to make clients happy. We got business to run, those kinds of things, right? So that's what's happening. And it goes on and on and on with the types of risks and things that are out there. Everybody's seen what's happened with Sony and all the actors and everybody's photos. And there's just tons and tons of things that are happening these days. A good place to look, and I did keep the link in here, and as I said, we'll publish these out so you can see them. But there are organizations that's all that they do is track what's going on in your area. And this is actually as of this morning. I pulled it up and said, okay, so Kaspersky's gotten hacked and they don't even know how many records. The Holiday Valley Resort got hacked and we don't know how many records. Oh, the YMCA got hacked, don't know how many records got compromised. But this is just today. And if you look at some of the big ones, so they also keep track of who's the biggest, baddest ones. These are ones that you probably know some of. The big eBay, the Target, the Home Depot. These are things that have made it all the way to the news when we start hearing about them. Or we get that little nice letter in the mail that says, we're sorry, we have to cancel your credit card. And oh, by the way, there's a bunch of people that have your social security number and, yada, yada, yada. So we've kind of been through that drill. But this is a good place to kind of check and see what's going on because if it's in an industry that you're in, you might want to pay attention. So somebody's figured out a good way to hack into a particular vertical. The other thing that's going on is just changes in technology. So just like criminals of the past, you know, you could keep them out maybe with a chain, you know, that was till we invented bolt cutters, right? And then you could keep them out with, you know, electronic surveillance, and that was till they figured out how to, you know, so they're always figuring out how to one-up whatever you have. Well, today we have software as a service. Lots and lots of things are going out into the cloud. Key Methods, we do a lot of stuff in the cloud as well. Okay, well, now your stuff isn't physically on premise, it's somewhere else, and you got to go there to get it. So we need to make sure that the way that you're doing that is in a safe and secure way. We have infrastructure as a service. So I might rent my equipment and stick it down at the CTC. I might stick it at GoGrid or Rackspace or something like that. Again, my stuff is removed from my environment, so now there's a link of getting from point A to point B that needs to be taken care of. And then anybody know CAS is actually the cyber criminal. It's as a service. Believe it or not, there is a black market, an underground, so to speak, that's a whole industry that is just about buying credit cards, buying names, selling sites to go get stuff, okay, that's out there. So it is its own industry now. It's not just some, you know, a kid hacking into your computers. Other things that are changing, in the old school, this used to be very sophisticated. This is the mob, you know, or this is a very strong group of individuals that are you know, physically housed somewhere. They bought all their own servers. They, you know, they made their own industry themselves. And you can kind of catch those guys because eventually someone's going to screw up, and you can find those servers that they bought, those people that they hired, etc. Nowadays, because we have just like the ability to spin up a brand new company and use all these technologies to get up to speed quickly, our criminals can get up to speed quickly now as well. They're using the same types of tools. So they have a distributed network, right? So they're pinging, you know, network traffic all over the place so you can't trace them. They're borrowing unknown sites. They're hacking into our own equipment to use those to hack into other people's equipments. They can buy them or they can host them, they can rent them, they can cloudize them, they can do all that kind of stuff. And it's cheap. Okay, so it used to be if I had to buy those $100,000 worth of servers, I had to find a good criminal that could back me. Now I can start it for $20 a month. Right? I mean, it's a totally different world. Here's some for real, you can go look them up, cybercrime for hire organizations, that's what they do. Do you have job postings that you can go find a job as a hacker? We have payment systems. That's another thing. We don't need to pay in cash anymore, right? We have bitcoins, we have web money, we have perfect money. We have different methods that we can transmit value that aren't tracked by the government, that can't get, you know, traced as easily. So lots of ways to get paid for all this criminal activity, and actual marketplaces to house all of the tools, all the people you need, all the funding sources. You can just go directly somewhere and be in that business. That can be your business. That's our business, so that I want to be in that business. Here's a bunch of plug and play, less than $200 in most cases, tools that you can commercially go buy to do stuff. It's free. So I'm not a criminalist, and this isn't a specialty of mine. This is just, you can go out and easily find it. My kids can go find out how to do this and exercise it if they want to. Okay? So lots of things that are out there. Here's a very specific one that's called Spy Eye. And what's interesting about this particular one, no, stand up so I can point out some stuff on the stuff here, is you can pick what you want. Okay? So I want to buy the credit card grabber, and I want to do, you know, I have options of how nasty do I want to be. It changes how much I got to pay for this tool. Or I can go buy information. I can buy screenshots from my favorite, you know, actor or actress or somebody famous. I can buy a tool to just snag somebody's emails. Right? I can jump into FTP accounts and go, you know, steal people's drawings and CAD, etc. I can even grab people's certificates off of their servers and Exchange servers and things like that, so I can then spoof them and pretend that I'm them digitally. So lots of ways to do this kind of stuff. So it's great that they have all those tools, okay, but those tools are only as good as we let them be, right? Because unless they get on my stuff and in my network, that's great. You know, have them out there, but don't get into my world, so to speak. So malvertising is now on the rise. So what is that all about? Well, people will set up a website, and they're running a business now. So just like the rest of our business, we want to go get clients. We want lots of them. We want leads. We want active leads, good leads. Well, we set up a website and we advertise. Okay. But the issue is we're advertising as if we're somebody else, right? So I'm pretending I'm Yahoo, or I'm pretending I'm, you know, some other legitimate network, some other legitimate business, and it's very easy to just copy and paste off of legitimate websites and make it look just exactly like theirs. And then we do a redirect, right? So when I click on it, I think I'm going to a legitimate whatever site to go do my business, and it looks exactly the same as the real one. Okay, I mean, the government did this when we did our healthcare, right? There was like spoofs that looked exactly like get your healthcare from the U.S. government, but you're getting your healthcare through a paid place, and they may look exactly the same. It's not by accident. It's because they want you to make a mistake and think that you're on a legitimate area. Okay? So they redirect you, and then they exploit something, right? So they infect you. They put something on your network, okay? On your device, on your cell phone, on your something, okay? And then most of the time it sits there because they don't want to draw attention. So now we've just put something there, okay? You can read, there's, and you'll see this a lot of times. So the New York Times, popped up and said, hey, if you get a message that says this, it's not really the New York Times. Hey, if you get this message, it's really not your bank. There's a scam going on, right? Then half the time you look at that and go, but is that a scam? It's like, how do I know what to trust? So it's really difficult. So once I have this thing there, so now what happens? Well, typically what happens is like that spy eye, that marketplace that's out there, people are buying sets of information. So just give me 100 exploited devices, and I'll pay you $100. Boom, I got them. Okay? So now I can talk to them. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to either exploit it by putting something there, some ransomware, some malware advertising, a keylogger to grab your passwords, screenshot caps. You're putting something on your machine to do bad nasties, right? And a lot of times, like I said, that first infection isn't even putting anything on there that's necessarily damage. It's just waiting. It's just a place that can be sold. It's a token waiting to be sold to somebody else to control. Okay? How many have seen that screen? How many people have the unfortunate and seen that? So again, some of our clients have been down this. This is the crypto locker that we talk about. This is your time. How much time you got left to pay me money, or we destroy all your data. Right? So you have pay me that time and I'll give you your data back. Right? So they don't even do anything other than just give you what you already had. And you can see the derivatives. This used to just be crypto locker. Now it's bringing everything locker. Right? It'll be the Tuesday locker next week.
Do they give your money back? Do they give your data back after you get your money?
You don't know who you're dealing with, and you're dealing in bitcoins. You're dealing in values streams that can't be traced. Okay? So if you have no backup, and that's your last ditch straw, and it's $500, and you're a business and you can't do business at however many $1,000s a day, you take your risk. And then you're always wondering, great, I got my data back, and I bet I got about 18 other things in there that I didn't want that I'm going to get exploited with tomorrow. I mean, so yeah, it's a bad deal. Okay, so every time I go to any kind of these events, or I go talk to an attorney that talks about stuff, all I do is walk away just going, man, why even get out, leave the house in the morning? It's just horrible. So let's switch over and let's start talking about maybe some preventative action, some things that we can do. So is everybody sufficiently now heads out of the sand? We know this is real stuff. I knew you knew that, or you wouldn't be here in the first place, but just make sure. All right, so preventing malware and other infections in the first place, what we want you to do is to start thinking about what I'm going to call the full infection chain. So most of us, just because, again, that's the way we grew up a long time ago, if I just buy an antivirus program, everything's great. As a matter of fact, I'm going to buy the cheapest antivirus program I can. I'm going to go with a free one because it's really important to me to have good security. Okay? So that's the way we usually go about things. Okay? Even if you bought the most expensive antivirus that's out there, it's one method of protection, and that's it. And it's only typically right as something's getting ready to do something bad, and hopefully all the chances and the stars line up, and you get a little something that says, hey, I blocked something for it. You go, whoo, dodge that bullet, okay? So I want you to be thinking about it's not just antivirus. We'll talk about all the other kinds of things, just like I mentioned in the physical world of security, that it's not just we lock one door, right? We'd like to lock all the doors, and maybe we add a security camera, and maybe turn the lights on at night, and maybe we have someone watch our house when we're gone for 2 weeks. There's other things that we deploy. We don't just rely on one thing. So blocking the sites that contain the exploits at the network level, okay? So if we know that this site is bad, and we put things in place to say, please don't let me go to bad places, we have another layer of security. Most of us don't have the Rolodex of the bad sites, and we browse like crazy and all that kind of stuff. Most of us know that there are certain sites that happen to have a lot of skin, or a lot of gambling, or a lot of other things, tend to have a little bit more bad other stuff going on at the same time. But there's plenty of legitimate sites that get hacked, and you don't know, and you can get redirected, etc. So you really need to look at some sort of a service, some sort of an appliance, some sort of a device that's helping to watch traffic for you, right? You can do that at the firewall. You can block some known things. You have firewalls that have threat management in them, kind of like antivirus, that kind of watch, that have subscriptions. Very similar to like some of the services that you have for your kids. Please block all the sites that I don't want them to go to. It's the same kind of technology, but somebody's maintaining, here's where all the criminals are hanging out or doing bad things, or we see things that may look suspicious, and kind of keep a little bit of a watch on that to keep you from going there. Protecting users from phishing attacks, and so we've heard of the social game here of getting your information. So making sure that we are aware of what's going on around us. Telling our employees, don't click on those links from people that you don't know, and all of those kinds of things are all that phishing stuff. Blocking malicious links in emails and other applications. Browsers aren't the only way that we get infections. Probably email links are probably worse than browsers these days. But if you're clicking on stuff that you don't know where it goes to, high likelihood that there could be an issue. Other thing that people don't realize is really anything that you activate in your email may contain something. So the simple fact of you get a little square and you hover over it and it says, click here to download a picture. Okay? When you're doing that, you're talking to a server somewhere and you're downloading something. Hopefully it's a picture. Right? But there's an opportunity. So again, it's all about, if you don't know, back to the physical world, how many of you would walk up to a stranger in the middle of downtown Chicago in a bad area town that you've never been to and said, hey, hi, how's it going? Nice to meet you. Got any pictures? We wouldn't do that. All right. So if we talk about trying to block, that's part of it. Then we talk about contain. Uh-oh, stuff still got in. Okay? And nowadays, we have lots of things that come into our door that don't go through the firewall. So we need to think about, if it gets in, how do we contain it so that it doesn't get out? All of these tools, if they're sitting on your network and they're supposed to do something, go download a payload, go send your credit card information somewhere, go exploit you in some way or another, if it can't get out, it's only as damaging as it may take up some cycles on your computer or your network traffic or something like that, but it's not communicating out to its server to do its job. Okay, so containment is probably almost as important as blocking in the first place, because there's probably on any given network stuff that's there that you don't want there to begin with. So that'll block those droppers, like I was talking about, dropping bad applications like the keyloggers and the spam senders and the bots and all the different technologies that are out there. Again, if we have time to go into down the road a 201 course, we'll dive deeper into how each of those, a keylogger works, how spyware works, that kind of stuff. So the other thing that it does is, so it doesn't allow them to get the payload. Somebody just bought your address and wants to put the bad stuff there. Can't do that because I blocked it. Can't, if it got there, send the stuff back home. Can't phone home. And the other one is like this ransomware. They have to have that encryption key, right? So they have to have something sent that says, hey, this was successful. Right? I've got control of the network. I'm going to pass you the key and contact information, all this kind of stuff, so that you can take money from these guys. Okay, if you're stopping that communication, that's another area of prevention. So again, big picture, multiple levels of monitoring, filtering, blocking, auditing. Just being aware and checking all the different touch points that are surrounding this. And do some kind of a regularly scheduled audit. I know it's the last thing we think about. Stick it on a calendar. Do something. Do it when you check your, fire, buzzers or whatever. I mean, you got to just make it into a regular habit of checking every now and then. We talked about this briefly about more than one, level of protection. I really like this this picture just because we all understand, single pane of glass. You shoot it with a bullet, it fractures into a bazillion pieces. You look at bulletproof glass. You stagger some glass and some polycarbonate and some glass together, and it just goes boom, and it can't get through. Right? It's each individual slice in and of itself isn't all that strong. You put it all together, and you have a defense mechanism. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about cybersecurity. When we talk about not glass, but really tool sets of what does that take, I've divided kind of the on-prem, the network stuff, and all the laptops and the other devices that are not within your environment. So email security, we're talking spam blockers, spam protection, things that are basically, and the ones today are watching both directions. They're watching stuff coming in. Hey, these guys are annoying you with advertising. That used to be the worst of our problems. Okay, now there's a lot more. So we have stuff coming in that wants to prompt us to, click here and go there. And a lot of the spam blockers are able to say, hey, we know you spent out 40 billion emails. We know you're a bad guy. We block you, blacklist. Okay, so that's very helpful. But a lot of them now also, if you're going out, if all of a sudden your system is starting to send out massive emails or send email to specific addresses that are bad, okay, it's again, some of the email systems are sophisticated enough to go, whoa, 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 don't do that, don't do that. I know that's going to a bad place. You don't want to go there. We talked about antivirus, and I'm putting endpoint down there because hopefully most of you know you can get antivirus protection for your laptops, for your tablets, for your other devices as well. It used to be kind of like the the Mac world. Whoo, we're all safe because we're doing a Mac. Whoo, I'm all safe because I've got an iPhone. Whoo, I'm safe because I got a That's not the case anymore. There are things that can attack all those different operating systems. Firewall, the big one. Obviously your internet presence is going through a device, so you want to make sure that sucker is as top notch as it can possibly be. And don't go cheap there. I should have thrown the system up the the Linksys that everybody and their dog bought a million years ago and still sits there and runs their business, right? Because we sit there and go, oh, that's good enough. I'm getting internet. Firewall's doing its job. It's a good router. Woo. Oh, it's got a couple little ears to stick on it, so that takes care of all my access points too. And those are secure going through those weak points as well, right? That's the way we think about it because it's not broke, so we don't fix it. Okay, the reality is, how many times have you updated your server, your workstations, those sorts of things in the last however many years? Okay, that's a network device that's extremely important, right? So if the processor speeds need to go up on your equipment, probably needs to go up on that guy too, because maybe it can even try to keep up, but how much traffic is going through it? Is that processor able to keep up and do all that filtering, checking, doing all that stuff fast enough that you get a real-time good experience and it actually didn't let something slip through? Right, so that firewall is extremely important, and it's important that it has updated subscriptions on them so that you actually have antivirus that's working and you have support that's working if you run into a problem. You can audit logs, and hopefully it's something that most of us probably aren't going to go do it ourselves, but at least somebody can run some tools against it to monitor it, see what's going on, check it, audit it occasionally. There's something, and again, I'm going to go into this in a lot more depth in a further one, but it's like email spam filtering, email traffic, but it's doing that on your network pipe. Okay, so basically you're redirecting your network traffic through a service that's checking everything going in and everything going out, and it's got updated every minute kind of a database of where the bad guys are, and it just flat blocks it. So if you're trying to go to the known CryptoLocker site, it just stops it. So even though it got out of your network, it got out of your firewall, it's stopping it before it gets out into the bad guy's hands. Okay? And there's more and more of that type of security that's happening today. And then of course, having training and having some kind of a policy, make sure that your staff do the basics, know the basics of don't go to certain places, etc. And I put big risk here. So the thing that a lot of us are forgetting is even if I have an awesome firewall, if the guy brings his laptop home to his house that's got that cheaper firewall and does business at home, maybe accessing your work from home, doing whatever they're doing, but they bring it back in, it's now infected, and then it spreads all over the network, right? So this bring your own device has a lot of things that go along with that. The good thing is maybe they paid for it. The bad thing is you got a lot of business data on it, and it may have a lot of stuff that you don't want on it that's coming in and under your network. So we kind of talked about that layered approach. Here's kind of a pictorial of what I was talking about before. Your inbound and outbound stuff basically being checked, right? So you're preventing the malware from coming in because it's going through the filter. If you do get slammed with something, your outbound traffic is blocking the botnets and stuff and doesn't let them out. And there's some added bonuses here of you now also can manage the content. Okay, so you can actually see, and it's to the discretion that you want. You don't need to spy on everybody, but you can see my facility is using 10% of its bandwidth, 13 hours of its day, 450 hits on pages, however you want to measure it, of going to different sites, different categories of different sites. Or, oh my gosh, didn't realize that we're streaming movies, streaming music, doing all these other types of things. Maybe that's why we don't have any internet speed. So you get this added benefit that's might be an efficiency thing as well as protecting your network. So some basic auditing. What are some things that you can do yourself or ask others to do for you? Talked about the firewall activity and logs. Tried to kind of highlight the big ones. So what you're really looking for here is the keywords repeated activity, repeated events. So your firewall, how many people know where their firewall is in their business? Even physically located. Okay? So that's probably about what I would expect. Okay? So it is, like I said, the key to the door. You may or may not know that it's locked, but everybody else in the world just sees that as a number. We're right back down to we're just a number, right? And they're slamming that number over and over and over and trying repeated hack attempts at passwords, trying different ports, different entry points throughout that. So when there's repeated activity, the odds are somebody's trying to get in. And if you give them enough time, they probably will get in because they'll just keep getting better tools. They'll find the right weak spot and they'll get in. So watch for repeated activity. And then any configuration changes. So if the configuration is changing, a password on it's changing, those kind of, the ports are being owned. If something's being changed and you didn't change it, real high likelihood someone's getting ready to do something bad. Wi-Fi access points and logs. So we always forget, oh, well, there's, and sometimes it's on the same device, like I said before, but if we have an access point, it's the who. Okay, so I was joking with, we had a GWATA event last night, and I was joking about, I was halfway thinking about coming in here and just putting in one of our access points from the office, calling it the CTC public access. That's password, there's no password, right? Anybody can get on it. Go ahead, hop on it. It's right there. Okay? You don't know where you're going, right? So that kind of stuff can happen. Who knows if somebody drops an access point out in the parking lot outside of your building? Would you know? Right? You think you're getting onto a legitimate site. So there are just some ways that you can test and reverse it. Opposite of that is there somebody sitting in your parking lot that's getting onto your network. Okay, so it's the who, the when, and I like the from what device. So good access points can categorize these things. So if you look at the logs and go, why am I consistently getting activity at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night? I don't have employees here at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. No. Oh, it's kiddo from next door that's coming over to my parking lot, to use my bandwidth. Well, that means he's somehow cruising through your network in one way, shape, or another. He's at least using your internet access. Okay? So the what device are really important, and then the when. So a good one, you can actually see, oh, it's the iPads in the office, it's the employees' cell phones, it's the whatever, and literally you can just block it out and say, that's it. That's the easiest way. So to have access, only these devices get onto this network if I'm in a business type environment where I don't have guests and things like that. So Wi-Fi. What am I doing on time? Good. Network device activity log. So again, these are other types of devices. This is a network device, right? So if I'm looking at this, again, where is this accessing? My primary network at my office. Hey, there was a remote access connection last night from, and I put the where, from Russia. Might be a problem. Right? So literally, there are some of the tools that we use in our office. It just, Google Maps pops up, pinpoint, 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 pinpoint. If I'm seeing pinpoints of access points that ain't in Wenatchee, or at least in Seattle, because I have Seattle branch, I start to say, we got a problem. And what do we need to do, right? So we're either going to block that IP address, we're going to block that device, we're going to do something, or at least I know about it. So that's half the battle is, do you know that kind of stuff's going on? So watch that from the where. And then what's being accessed. So now we're getting down to the kind of the nitty gritty of what's being accessed on your server, what file shares, what system resources, those kinds of things. And again, all of them are about the what, where. So if there are odd times, odd locations, or if you see, hey, Joe is not supposed to have access to our HR files. Why is Joe's computer accessing HR files? It's not even supposed to be having access. Well, maybe somebody else has spoofed his account. It's not really Joe in the first place. If it is, you need to take care of that too. And then password management. So at the end of the day, a lot of our stuff we try to password protect. I think I actually put this on. I was going to show this real quick. Any of you are using two-factor authentication. I want to bring it up in case you don't know what that is. Two-factor authentication means that I need two things. I need a password and I need a device. So it's a secondary method to make sure that if someone gets my password, it's still useless unless they have something else of mine. Usually, nowadays, cell phone's a great way to do that because we pretty much almost always have our cell phone with us. So you can see the little timer that's flashing and it goes. So if I try to access some of these services, okay, I have to have that code within that 30 seconds or whatever that thing spins for it to turn on. So even if somebody was watching on my shoulder and watched my password being typed in, great. You still aren't getting into those things unless you stole my phone too, right? And there's different ways that can work. You can do that through text. There are applications like this. There are little credit card things that have numbers on. There's little key fobs that you can shove in. There's lots of different styles of these things. That's called two-factor authentication. Great way, especially on mission-critical stuff. Right, so if I'm logged on to our primary major servers or anything to where somebody could hack my account and get to my clients, it's got secondary authentication on because I don't want that to ever happen. So penetration testing and scans. Let me flip over. I didn't get up there again. This one. So now we're getting kind of deeper. So if you're a bank, if you're a HIPAA compliant type environment, if you need somebody that is an expert, you saw the disclaimer I threw up there at the beginning. You need someone to certify that you're protected. Probably going to be looking at a third party. There's a bunch of them that are out there that can be hired for service to do a very specific security compliance type of audit. Usually they require tools that can be expensive and they require some kind of special skills to do. And they're going to do internal and external. So they're going to sit on the inside of the network and try to burrow their way out. They're going to go from the outside and try to burrow their way in and see what kinds of risks or vulnerabilities that you have. Biggest thing that you need to do is determine whether or not you should do it. And I'd recommend, even if you're not a compliant type, find out what it costs, have one done. We actually do a level of this that is not certified, but is much lower cost that gives you a good general feel for that. But basically take action on the result. I'm going to show you kind of a quick scan of what a very kind of generic one looks like and what it kind of looks at. So when you engage with somebody, ask them, what am I going to get for that, however much money you're going to give me? Can I get a sample of the report that you're going to provide me so I get a feel for the types of things you're going to check? You should have some sort of a checklist of this is what's going to go through. And it's going to check things like what kind of servers do you have and what kind of password policies do you have and what kind of ports are open and the basic stuff that's going to be happening in your environment. Are people resetting their passwords, etc.? Should come up with a general risk score. So how risky, of environment do I have? And then kind of the hit points. Okay, the reason that you are at risk is because this. You don't have antivirus. You're not changing your passwords. Your password strength policy is not good enough. You have inactive users on your network that you fired 30 days ago, but they still have active accounts. I mean, all of these types of things are the little details that are the exploits that a lot of people use once they get into your network to do the type of damage that's out there. So again, just lots of different operating systems. I mean, anybody that's had to listen to Joel with the sales calls, you do realize that 2003 is no longer supported. You do realize that XP is no longer supported. These are the reasons that you get those calls, because it's dangerous to have those in your environment, as well as non-compliant in most of your worlds there. So that's kind of what a scan looks like. Here's another one. I blocked out client info. I don't know how well you can see it, but this is network failures, right? So how many times has somebody tried to access your account and couldn't, right? So here's all the in the past 30 days, 7 days, 24 hours, how many occurrences has that happened? It's natural. We all flub. Dan Paquette tried to log in, forgot his password. Okay, that's once. Okay, when it's 100 times in the last 24 hours, probably not okay. There's something that may be going on. So this kind of watches for those sorts of things. Again, another kind of sample of one occurrence of something going on, and then hopefully lay it out in such a way that you have actionable items of change the password strength, do this, then rerun it again 30 days later, 60 days later, and say, hey, my risk score went from here to here, so you know that it works. So I kind of tried to boil down the top 10 best practice type items. I know it was a little funny with the first one, but basically make sure that you're aware that you're at risk, right? We're all at risk, so don't ignore it is really the first one. Seek to understand methods used to attack. So there's lots of, we all subscribe to the internet, we all have Google, there's lots of sites that are out there that'll tell you what the hack of the day is or who's getting breached, what's going on. You make that part of your regimen, just like the other types of newsletters and things to find out what's going on in your industry. Just kind of stay abreast of what's going on. And once you know those systems that are being used, understand your systems. We have a firewall, we have an email protection, we have internet filtering, and then analyze those against the attacks that are being proliferated, right? Oh, I heard they've got this phishing scheme that makes you try to go to this site. Do we have anything that's in place when somebody's at home and they were to do that on a computer? Would it stop them? Have I educated them? Have I told them if I don't have a system in place? So just understand the threat, understand what you have to work with, and marry those two together. That was the evaluate part. So protecting layers, remember the glass and the bulletproof glass, multiple forms, don't just rely on one thing. It will fail you. Regularly scheduled audits, and I do like the concept of a third party coming in. So even if you're in the IT field, still having another set of eyes look at something that, oh, that's good, I didn't realize that. I have lots of IT colleagues that I'm constantly changing ideas and exchanging things with to make sure that we don't, oh man, missed that one, forgot that one. Use the second factor authentication whenever possible. So if there is a breach, that the damage can be limited. You'd be surprised how many things have two-factor authentication nowadays. Have some sort of a written security policy in place, even if it's as much as don't click unwanted unknown links. That's something. Make sure that it gets out to people. Train your staff. Don't assume they know better. And we always forget. I did that training last month. Yeah, but you hired 3 people this last month. Did they get that training coming in? No, they didn't know any better. Those will be the ones that'll get you in trouble. And probably the biggest one is if something doesn't feel right, don't take the risk. I don't know how many times I've talked to people after the fact and they're like, I knew better. I knew that was one of those links. It's like, well, if you knew that, why did you push it? Why did you do that? So that's probably the biggest one in that area. So, outside of that, I'll take a deep breath and let's ask any questions, any experiences anybody's had, any new threats that anybody's seen or heard.
I know one of the biggest things is how to keep track of passwords and logins. I've seen everything from it written down on a piece of paper to, someone writing in a Word document. Are there any good services out there, any good systems you guys have in place that can really do that?
Yeah.
Other than building proprietary?
Yeah, so you probably saw one of my second factor authentications that's on my device is LastPass, which I use personally. Okay. And it's ironic because LastPass was hacked like 2 days ago. Seriously, right? As I was preparing the materials, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it explicitly went in. So the way LastPass, or I guess the types of things to look for if you're going to get a password manager is encryption of your stuff at rest and in motion, right? So the whole concept of encryption, the way that they crypto lock our devices is they use these big old algorithms and they encrypt stuff and it needs a key. Okay, so as long as the stuff that's on this device, if I have my passwords on here and it's encrypted and the device gets stolen or whatever happens, at least I've got it not in plain text. If it goes from here to a website to update it when I make a change, I want to make sure that it's encrypted in motion, it's encrypted when it gets there, the keys are checked. So they're certainly not Word, not Excel, not the Notepad, not a lot of other things. So make sure that it is encrypted. And I would highly suggest make sure that master password that gets you into the vault is really, really good and changed often and put into a safety deposit or someplace so when you forget it, you know where to go get it. And use two-factor authentication. Right? So when I, for instance, saw, LastPass was hacked, very first thing I said is your data was encrypted in motion. So what they discovered was their user base. Right? So somebody knows Dan Paquette has LastPass. So that's what happened on that particular instance, which again doesn't make me happy. They know my email address. They know they know some things about me, but I mean I can hit Google on anybody in this room and I'll know some things about everybody in this room. Right? So what you need to do is to make sure that you don't let all the pieces all come together in one spot at one time, right? Or make it easy for someone to get this piece and this piece and this piece and formulate and put them together. So, good question. Others?
So, oftentimes a lot of those emails with the FedEx email you showed out for Bank of America, your card is compromised, click here to give us your information and make sure some of those nowadays feel more obvious than they're spam.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the piece that I think about is the repeated emails that I get that I don't
know.
respond to, they're just more like a newsletter or more like here's some information.
Yes.
And an unsubscribe button here. And I haven't heard of any of those being.
Yeah, there are plenty of those, and so I have mixed emotions about that particular one. A legitimate site, if I'm dealing with Amazon or you're dealing with Key Methods, if you hit unsubscribe, it's legitimately going there. It actually gets removed, and people don't bug you. That's great. But if it's from somebody that you probably didn't even sign up for in the first place, right? They bought your email from somebody else, so you didn't even sign up. That's typically, telling them, yes, this is a valid email address that's still active that somebody's reading, and you get pestered more. So
Is that what happens at Craigslist too? Like when you say you don't want to be emailed, but yet they come through, but they're wanting you to legitimize, right?
Yes, well, that's why you see most people will spell out dot with DOT. They'll spell out, they'll make it to where it's doesn't look like an email address, doesn't look like, that's why you see all these funky, what are they doing that for? But so it doesn't get picked up on a scan type of a thing. But actually you triggered something else with your question. If you do get a hyperlink, click here, Okay, if you right mouse click and look at the properties, that's the very first thing that I should put that in there, but amend that. But that's the first thing that I always suggest is to look at it, because if it's, Timbuktu, Taiwan or something, oh, that's probably not it. I mean, it needs to and be careful, because they're smart enough to know that we're now smart enough to look for that. So they'll make it look like, Amazon.com. So you don't want to do Amazon.gonnestealyourblind.com. Right? That's not Amazon, right? Anything dot something else, not Amazon. It better be something dot Amazon.com, like, at least. And even then, I feel comfortable with it, because it's difficult for somebody. They'd have to hack Amazon, take over that subdomain type of an activity. That's a good way to watch. Yeah, good question.
I was curious, you talk about, especially, centers like this where, there's Wi-Fi, it's free, Starbucks, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
More and more people, the devices are getting smaller, they're portable. So how do you protect yourself when you're a mobile person and you're living on the go with your computer?
Yeah, a lot of people won't like this, but don't use it. So use your 4G or something that is an actual, I own this, I pay for it, I know it goes from this point to that point, so it's much harder to crack. Use a wired line. So if I'm in a hotel, I almost never use the hotel Wi-Fi. I'll hop onto the LAN connection at least, because at least I know that's physically in a wall and probably goes to their wiring closet, I hope. Don't do sensitive information. So that's probably not the time to do your online banking is over the hotel Wi-Fi, network. It's usually poor performance anyway. And then the last thing is just to make sure that whatever you're doing is encrypted, when you're seeing the lock and you get the verify and the confirmed and, some of the different things that are out there that let you know that you actually have a legitimate connection. That'll help too. But yeah, some of those is it's probably just don't do really sensitive stuff on questionable network. Even walk into a business center at a hotel, right? It's wired. You have no idea, other than getting a pass for the airport to get on the plane. I'd be just careful about what you do on that. Some of the stuff at our office where we have your entire cloud desktop and the whole channel's encrypted. Okay, so I know there's nothing that's maybe being left on that machine. Little different deal, but even then I'd be cautious. I'm always cautious. Then you still get burned.
I would add maybe you could use a VPN or something.
Yeah, it's similar to you can lock stuff down. The problem I have with that is most of the a lot of people don't know how to do that, or it's complicated or whatever. But
in your experience, does switching to cloud services generally make you more secure?
that is a really loaded question. So what do you think, Martin? Think it makes you more secure?
I like your answer.
You like my answer? Yeah, because you don't want to just dodge it. So I personally think any and all forms of electronic communication can be hacked and are probably just as vulnerable if you neglect them the same way. It's probably the politically correct right answer, okay? Because there's nothing that is foolproof. And the moment you say that it's foolproof, you're going to get burned. I like having everything in one spot. Okay, so the thing that I like about the cloud is at least I have back to that master password. I know where it's physically located. I'm not routing into Timbuktu, and if it's hacked, my stuff's not there, kind of stuff. And my launch point is always the same. I go there, and it's just like having my desktop. When I sit down at it, I feel pretty secure because all my stuff's there. I loaded it. It's mine. I logged in with my password. I feel pretty comfortable. If you're doing a full cloud solution where it's the same thing, everything's there, and I feel kind of good about that. When you start getting, I've got my one app over here, and I got my Salesforce over there, and I got this over there, and I got this over there, and this over there. I use the same password for all of them. Then I start getting a little bit more nervous, right? Because now I've got more risk points. Right? Doesn't mean that it's not as secure. It just means you better use the same diligence on every single one of those access points. How was that? You want to add anything, Mark? I know that's your space too.
Well, I just think it goes back to what you said. It's the newsletter. It's like who's the vendor you're using for your cloud service?
Right.
But the bigger the vendor, the more likely they are to be attacked too. So it's for small businesses like probably most people in this room, it's very hard to do due diligence to really know what sort of security service providers put in place.
Yeah, that's probably really good. I mean, if you're dealing with Microsoft, Office 365, like they're big, so they're a big target, but they're also spending lots and lots and lots of money in prevention, so you get that best of both worlds. If you're dealing with, Joe Schmo in his basement that's, dealing, give you an email box, for X a month, who knows what they're doing. And generally, they're strapped for cash, and I guarantee you they're doing things as cheap as, possible.
All right, answer the question another way, the thing that you comment on is, I think this goes back to your own personal habits again. It's really more about what you do a lot of times than what the vendor does. So Office 365 is a really good example, because instead of Office 365, and a lot of my clients ask me to do this, the very first thing you can do is go, change password policy so it never expires.
Yes.
And because we all want the convenience of not having passwords that expire. But is that really a good habit? You ask yourself, and I'm going to use the same password I use for my banking site or for Target, right?
Exactly.
So we all want the convenience, and then we also want to be protected. So I think it really goes back to our own habits a lot more necessarily than like the vendor.
Yeah, it's like back to that physical security. I'd love to not lock the door in my house. It'd just be one less step that I got to do when I'm going to walk in. But there's a reason I lock the door. And there's a reason that I have different keys, for those things too. Anyway, good stuff. Yeah.
There's a strong, I think, personal incentive for people to attain the state of bliss if they can, including if that means blissful ignorance. So we're all just trying to do our work, and this specter of being unsecure is lurking out there somewhere. So I'm curious, in your experience, if through some of these simple measures you can get to a point where it's possible for the 99% of people in an organization that are not directly accountable for security as a whole to be able to not worry about it and reach that feeling of security that you're enjoying in this room today.
No, it's kind of the guys at work say I do analogies all the time. So I love analogies because it helps my brain think, and I look at that as akin to like your health, how you take care of your body, right? So I could work out every day of my life and do everything else and drop dead, of a heart attack just because, right? There's stuff still happens. So you're going to worry about it. It's kind of back to that personal preference. I know something's going to happen at some point in time. If I've done my due diligence and I've done the best that I can do with the budget and means that I have, I go to bed sleeping well at night. Right? That's
to put the question in a little bit more pointed way. Say you have a customer service representative or a salesperson or an equipment operator, and they interact with their digital services periodically, like everyone else. Is it necessary for them to be thinking a lot about security?
Yeah, the trying to expect them to is a sticking your head in the sand. They won't, right? So as an employer, you have to put those things into perspective. So, for instance, on my laptop, even though I'm the owner of the company, I have stuff on here that tracks every single thing that happens on this computer and every single website that I go to. Right? So does that mean that I should be sitting down here going, oh, I can't go to that website, and I can't go to that website, and I can't go to that side, No, this is a business computer. It's designed for a certain thing. If I'm dumb enough to go do things that I shouldn't be doing, and the rest of my staff sees it, that's bad on me, right? So it's, I think you need to take that approach to the degree that's necessary for the type of industry that you're in. So if you're in an industry where your risk or loss is going to be lost to your business, that's one thing, and like I said, and I think you can make that choice. But if you're putting other people's information at risk, I really don't know that you can sleep at night. I mean, you just have to continually always go to that next level and that's what I was saying, do the very best that you can. Know that you didn't go cheap. I bought the internet traffic service. I bought the monitoring service. I've got my firewalls up to date. I'm paying attention and doing everything that I should be doing.
It just seems like that's a pretty substantial difference probably for a lot of organizations. So if information security, awareness, consciousness, and stewardship is the responsibility of every employee, that represents a lot of training, a lot of accountability in terms of how performance is measured evaluated, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
That I feel like probably a lot of companies are not doing.
Well, we're in the days now where you cannot, I should say that, you always have control. It's very unlikely that you can control every single little thing, right? So if we give an employee the right or the access to use Office 365 from home or their personal device or whatever, I cannot enforce things that are happening on their home device or whatever. I can make a choice to say that we are not going to do that. You only get a phone that's issued for me, a computer that's issued for me, and I literally have the power to lock these things down. At 5 o'clock, all of our network activity goes dark. You cannot log on. Passwords are ineffective. There are ways to do that. And if you're in the right type of environment, maybe you go to that extreme. But that's back to that weighing the pros and the cons. That's great.
Is it a myth, or is there some truth to what some have said that Mac products are more secure or safe than PCs?
I think I was trying to remember who brought up the point. The bigger you are as a target, okay, the more dollars that are invested, right? So back in the day when Mac didn't have very much market share and when iPhones and things came out, so the two things, you got to be a big target and you have to have your product out for a little bit to be able to be futzed with, right? So I don't know that there's truth to that myth. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are Mac lovers that say, yeah, it never breaks down. There's less likelihood because it's not as big of a target. A lot of the products have not been out as long. So if I put those two together, I'd say probably less risk. Right? If I made my cell phone myself, I was the only one that I put together in the garage, really unlikely I'm going to get hacked on this baby because nobody knows the code. I didn't let anybody in. And I'd be a low target. So
I kind of hear you saying, yes, that's probably still risk with Mac's products. But
yeah, there are vulnerabilities, but so I don't want to lead anybody to believe that buy a Mac and you don't have to worry about it, because that's not the case. And you're still traveling over the same network shares and things that just like bringing this device in, right? It still is part of that ecosystem. But the operating system on it itself probably still has less attacks because it's not as big of a target is probably the bigger reason. I don't think it's because it's harder to hack. It's just it's a much smaller target audience. Wow, everybody exhausted. So, if that's the end of the questions, did we go deep enough? Is anybody interested in the future to do anything deeper on keyloggers, screensavers? Do you need to know any more about the risks? What was this at the right level? Give me some feedback.
I'd like more solutions, to know more about the different.
So go dive deeper into this type of firewall, this type of filtering system, this type of, and you can go a long way on like just one of them.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Understood.
Okay. Any other comments, feedback? Wendy, Jenny,
Yes.
any closing remarks or anything we need to do from GWATA's perspective?
Great. Thank you so much. I think it was really
Thank you. I think we're just about, I think I ran you a little over there, but not too bad.
For a few minutes to chat.
Okay. Yeah, I'll hang up for a while. All right, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Are you shaking?
You got your card with you? I think
On a couple of those points to your question there about additional.
I wasn't quite picking up on what you were trying to exactly dive into.
That's all right. It's kind of an in-depth question, a little bit philosophical.
Are you looking at like your staff or your employees or?
Oh, no, I'm just looking for the engagement like we always do. So we've got this perception, as individuals that we want to be able to concentrate on everything that we do, or concentrate on our work.
Right, I don't want to worry about everything else. Right. Yeah.
So there's just a strong personal incentive not to worry about it at all. So I think when people feel like they can just say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about that. Everything's